fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And last week we left off with the word grace means favor. And the only place we will ever find grace is in God, because God is good. The men of the earth at this time were trying to find favor in other things, but those other things were bankrupt of grace because they're counterfeit to what's true. So before we move on, we're going to talk a little bit more about Noah today. Who is someone in your life? They could be a fictional character, someone from history, or someone from your personal life, bless you, that you've thought, that is someone that I would like to emulate, model, mimic, be like in some sort of way, all right? And we're going to go around the room and answer from everyone, just for fun. Someone that you want to emulate, whether they're a fictional character, a character from history, or someone from your own life, right? Someone that you thought, that's a pretty good person, at least in this avenue, and I'd like to emulate them in this way, all right?
You're talking about character-wise.
Or skill.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't have to be male, male, female, female.
Oh, no, ma'am. That's a good question. No. No, no, no.
Oh, I always like Miss Jean. I think about her a lot and her kindness towards kids and sweet spirit.
Okay.
And she's been doing this a lot of years.
Okay. So Miss Jean's kindness to kids, to everyone, right?
She's still nice to me.
Okay. Very good. Who else? Everyone's got one.
I think on a very shallow level, there was a mom in Merriman,
Yeah.
and I remember being at a basketball game, and she just opened her bag, and she had snacks and treats, and I just thought, I want to be like, and she was a very neat lady, Miss Mills, Kelly Mills' mom.
Oh, yeah.
She just started giving kids snacks, and I thought, I want to be mindful to like be someone the kids can come to for snacks. It's a very simple video, but it's stuck with me.
That's good. All right, very good. Excellent. Someone else you want to imitate? Your sister? Okay.
She's so talented. She just does everything.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's good to respect someone's skills, right?
She's very talented.
Yeah. Excellent. All right.
I want to say Nancy.
All right. All right. Very good. Does she have snacks too? Is that why?
She seems to be able to do everything.
Okay. Seems able to do everything. All right. That's high praise. Who else in your life you want to be like, mimic?
Bonnie,
Bonnie.
yes.
All right. And why is that? Why is that? What's one reason why, or what about Bonnie?
She was always so nice and kind. Regardless of what came down, she could find good.
Okay. Very good.
I
Back.
think I look at the two Macs,
Uh-huh.
and how they handle confrontation and saying chill about it all. They are ones to mimic.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. Handle confrontation coolly.
Hardly ever. So that's also something to try to aspire to be.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
A friend of mine, Roanoke, he's a little bit older than I am, but he had a special needs son who was smaller than the palm of his hand when he was born.
Oh,
His son's now 19, and he's just severely disabled. Basically, that he'll just care for him the rest of his life, however long he lives, and just what he has to go through on a daily basis is unimaginable, and just knowing it will never end until his son's life ends. So, just his faithfulness doing that day in day out would be very, very difficult.
yes, it would be.
Just to see how he handles that.
Very good. just heard the other day, and maybe it's Iceland, that it's the official policy. If your child's going to have Down syndrome, you just abort. But that's a hard path to take, to raise someone like that. And we know someone in our own class who now is dealing, in their late stages of life, they are now carrying constantly. Right? That's hard to do. Who else? Someone you want to mimic or emulate. There's just a few of you left. Your dad. Okay. Okay. That's good. Anyone else?
We're going through Joseph in the teen class.
Yeah.
And MJ and I also went through Joseph a few weeks back. There are a lot of character strengths there to try to emulate.
Very good. One in particular? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
So, leadership, one, but able to flee from temptation, able to forgive.
Very good. Excellent. All right. Okay. From the world of fiction, I like Norman McLean. I think it's nonfiction, but he had a brother who was superior to him in every way, and he still loved him. He truly admired him. That's similar to Francis over here. You have someone who's more talented, it's easy to hate, right, or envy. And of course, we see the high example of that in Scripture is Lucifer, who was envious of what God had, right? That's how he gets to Adam and Eve. So we're thinking about people in our life, or people from even the world of fiction or the world of history that we look at and say, I would like to emulate that. And it's fascinating how we can admire people who have something we don't have, whether it's patience or coolness or a skill or a talent or a kindness. It says here that Noah, he found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 9. And then it goes into, these are the generations of Noah. This is the line of Noah, and these are what the days of Noah were like. Well, we already know what the days of Noah were like a little bit if we go back a few verses. Men were wicked. And usually it's understandable if we say, man, I would do better if I had no issues, right? And yet we're going to see in Noah that there's always going to be issues. And yet he chooses to remain faithful to God and consequently finds favor in God. So it says here, these are the generations of Noah. He was a just man. He was a moral man, down to even an individual level. It's easy to be concerned about laws and morality on a national level, global level, and we should. And then we turn around and we're not good to the ones right there in front of us, in front of our face. And yet this is who Noah was. It says also that he was perfect. The word perfect here does not mean sinless. You've heard before, you've been in church long enough. It means the idea that he is spiritually mature. But it also means that he is whole, he is content, and he is at peace. We can only find peace if we're pursuing the source of peace, right? And one of the things we see here as we get into this passage of Scripture is that no matter how great and mighty someone is on earth, if they are not in the pursuit of God, they will not know peace. They won't know it now, and they certainly won't know it hereafter. And yet Noah, even on earth, in a world full of wickedness, he's moral, he is complete, he's whole, and it says here that he walked with God. He lived according to the law of God. Now we can jump ahead to the New Testament, back in time to our study of Matthew, when Christ comes on and preaches his Sermon on the Mount, the kingdom of heaven, the way of heaven, living according to the truth, which is also the teachings of God. And this is who Noah is. We know that he's not going to be without sin, and we'll see that in a couple of chapters later. So it says that he was a just and perfect man in his generation, in his days, and he walked with God. He begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. So one of the things we're going to see, if we go back to Genesis 1, we will see that God is the creator. The fallen one cannot create, he can corrupt. And now that we're at a time where corruption is the status quo, and think also in the New Testament where pastors mention this verse or this idea in this passage numerous times over the years, that the end of time will be like the days of Noah. People just do as they please. And regardless how great wickedness will become, the wickedness cannot usurp, cannot take the place of God. God's grace and glory and judgment will still put it in its place. And we are getting closer to the flood, and I find it interesting that the end of days says that death and hell and all the enemies of God will be cast into a lake of fire. Now, lakes can be massive, right? But they're not as large as a sea. So I think there's a little tragic comic irony there that all of the wickedness of all time will fit in a lake. That's where you go. Because it cannot be greater and consume more than God. Because it's all God's. So he tells Noah here, I will judge all flesh. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. And he goes into all the details of what the ark is. And the word ark here means box or vessel. It is the same Hebrew word that's going to be used when we get to Moses being placed in his basket, right? And so the ark now becomes a symbol. It is a literal object, but it also becomes a symbol of God's grace, of God's salvation, right? I will save you. You have been good. You have obeyed me, even in spite of all the wickedness. Now I will save you, and there will be this box that you will prepare. And he goes into all great detail of the different animals and creatures that he's supposed to bring on. We'll look at that in chapter 7. When we think about who we want to emulate in our life, it is always important to understand that our primary being that we should try to emulate is God. And ideally, the people we've mentioned are people who are emulating God in some form or fashion, right? And Noah is perfect and whole and just because he is in the pursuit of the one who is that. And Noah's going to get like 3 chapters in the Bible. None of us have chapters in the Bible. And I just want to draw our attention back to, while Noah is certainly an admirable character, again reminding us, are we in the pursuit of God? And even if we don't become someone as well known as Noah. And if we want to be like these people that we think, hey, this is a good person, are we willing to do the work that they are willing to do? I mean, Noah was called to a very specific task, build this ark. And the people were given 120 years. That's a lot of work that Noah is called to. If we want to be kind, if we want to be giving, if we want to be diligent and persistent and faithful and skillful, there's, to some respects, a limit that we've been given that we have to work with, but there also is an effort that must be put forth as well. And of course, no one can outdo the effort that Christ put forth by dying on the cross, by condescending to man and dying for sins that he never committed. But Noah's going to build the ark, and it goes down to verse 22. After God gives him all of the instructions he ought to follow, thus did Noah. According to all that God commanded him, so did he. And that's a nice Hebraic way of phrasing things. He did it just as God told him to. That's how he did it, right? It amplifies and it compounds the fact that God said this and Noah obeyed. That might be an easier thing actually to follow. If we see all the wickedness in the world and God comes to us and says, I'm going to help you get out of here, okay, let's go. I'll build that ark, even though I'm probably going to be ridiculed. Who knows what dangers and ridicule Noah had to go through. Keep in mind what God called Adam and Eve to. You may have everything in the garden except for this one. And they had to trust him. Think when we get to Abraham, when God calls Abraham out of his homeland and says, go into this land. And yet we will see Abraham, even with all of his flaws, to trust in God. So now we get to chapter 7. And the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of the earth. There's a basic scientific fact. You don't get life without male and female. We'll move on. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him into the ark, because of the waters of the flood, of clean beasts, and of beasts that are not clean, and of fowls, and of everything that creepeth upon the earth. Then went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. We see a repetition here of several things throughout the rest of the chapter. There's a repetition of the humans that boarded the ark, who and what and how many. There's a repetition of the types of animals, and there's numbers, and there's a repetition of the days. It's going to rain for 40 days, and it's going to do this. This is fascinating just even on someone who likes numbers, which I don't, but for someone who does, right? The accounting who keeps a ledger of everything, right? And one of the things is you look through the Old Testament that the Jews were very good at keeping a ledger of things. It's one reason the scriptures were able to come to us, because scribes sat down and went stroke by stroke, jot and tittle, and kept account of everything. And we also see too here that God keeps an account of things. He cares for his creation, the human. He cares for his creation, the animals. And he is thorough when it comes time for judgment, right? So then we get into verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, in the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open. So we have some figurative language here, right? The fountains of the great deep and the windows of heaven. So even in destruction, you can use beautiful language. But the fountains of the deep, one of the things we are going to see here now, just as when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, they took of the plant kingdom and tried to cover themselves. That was not something they were ever told to do. They tried to fashion their own covering and were unable to. And God, in order to provide a covering, had to destroy one of his own creations and to cover them. And now we will see in the judgment of sinners, God will disrupt and tear up the natural world in order to bring judgment upon his people. The fountains of the deep are breaking up, and you've heard plenty of this. I won't go into all the details of how the tsunamis and the earthquakes that are going on at this time. You can imagine the sound that this would make. But the phrase windows of heaven I thought was pretty interesting. Some noted that in the ancient world, writers believed that there was, if you looked up in the sky, it was invisible, obviously, you couldn't see this, but they believed that the firmament was put together like a basket. It was woven like lattice work. And that's what held things back. Now, I don't know if that is what it is, but that was, some scholars have noted, that's what they're imagining in their language when they say the windows of heaven. They are these invisible windows, a lattice work up in heaven, and then they are opened. Others will say, well, the windows of heaven are actually clouds, because when you get later into the Old Testament, especially Elijah, and Pastor's been mentioning Elijah on Wednesday night's Bible study, when he prayed and there would be no rain, and then after Mount Carmel, he looks up and there's a little cloud, and we know that the clouds carry the rain for us, but this is also a time before rain has ever happened. There is a mist in the earth. It's possible, though, there aren't clouds. I don't know. It's just a fun thing to think about. I just also like to think that even in the ancient people who are so often thought of as backwards, understood that there is something up in the firmament that's holding this all together, and it's not us. It is God. And the angels of light and the principalities of the air will pretend as if it is theirs, but it is not theirs. And so we have the firmament opened, the fountains broken up, and a type of hell breaks loose on earth. This is the judgment of God. It is greater than all of the wickedness that's on the earth. And so we go to verse 12. The rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And it'll go into a repetition of Noah and his family entered onto the ark, and to every creature. Verse 15, and they went unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they went in, male and female. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth. Verse 18, and the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth. And the ark went upon the face of the waters, and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth. And all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in dry land died. And this means even the human beings, we speculated at the beginning of chapter 6, speculated along with a lot of other biblical thinkers, that if these human beings are being destroyed, many of them have become vessels for fallen spirits, possessed men. So now these spirits and these demons, where are they going to go? We'll see a likeness of this in the New Testament when God casts the legion out of the maniac and they look for an animal to go in. These demons must have been going berserk because there's nothing for them to enter. Where are we going to go? And of course, this is a foreshadow of what's coming their way. They ultimately have nowhere to go. They cannot escape the will and the judgment of God. And so we have this massive destruction that's happening, and we'll end here at the beginning of chapter 8, but let's continue reading. Verse 23, and every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle and the creeping things. There's that repetition of things that are destroyed, things that are accounted for, and the fowl of the heaven. And they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. So we have a little mention of how Noah and his family survived, but a lot of this judgment and destruction that's happening, right? And I love how the next chapter starts. And God remembered Noah, right? Now, obviously, God never forgets anything. It's not like he's over here judging, oh, yeah, there's this guy over here I've got to take care of. The writer actually lets us know in the previous chapter that while this is happening, Noah is also surviving. God hasn't forgotten. But now that the judgment has been given, chapter 8 begins with, and now God remembers Noah. God is a God of both judgment and of grace. He is a God that can bring death or has control over death, but he's also the God of life. He does not destroy and then leave nothing in its place. He always has life to offer, and he offers it here, verse 1, chapter 8. And God remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters were assuaged. And we'll talk more about that next week, but it's a great note to end on, that if God knows all and keeps account of everything and will bring judgment to wickedness on the earth, we'll jump a little bit ahead into the next chapter. That means he also keeps accounts and knows the wickedness that is within us. As David would say, search me and find some wicked way in me, because there are many, right? He knows that. And yet, he is for us as his creation. And those that have put our trust in him, he will remember us and he will rescue us. He's rescued all of us with our salvation now, and who knows how he is saving us and keeping us still even to this day. And no matter what judgment God brings upon the earth as the wickedness of man rises and rises and rises, ultimately our salvation, God will not forget us. And his salvation will come to us in the end of days. And when we pick up in chapter 8, we will see how God brings man back to earth, if you will, and we'll look at a couple key things within chapter 8. All right? Okay, thank you.